Every great sport has its giants, but the moment that hits hardest, the ones we remember, are when somebody nobody saw coming rewrites the script. Darts is full of those shockwaves, from the working class warrior who toppled a dynasty to the teenager who made grown-up men gasp. These are the stories that turned ordinary names into legends. These are the greatest underdog stories in darts history. Keith Deller, the factory worker who dethroned Bristow in 1983. In 1983, the World Championship final looked like a formality. Eric Bristow, the crafty Cockney, was the reigning king of darts. A dominant force, a household name, and standing across from him on the oche, a qualifier, a 23-year-old from Ipswich named Keith Deller, who worked in a factory and wasn't even expected to make the TV rounds, let alone the final. But Deller didn't play by the script. From the first match, he upset seasoned pros John Lowe in the quarters and Jockey Wilson in the semis. His confidence grew, but few believed he could go all the way. By the final, the crowd was divided, half in awe, half waiting for the bubble to burst. The match itself was tense. Every leg carried weight, and every checkout was a gut check. Bristow reached a finish first, sitting on 121, and then came the moment that would echo throughout darts history. Bristow, famously calculating, chose to lay up instead of going for the kill, believing Deller would crumble under pressure. But Deller didn't blink. With the world watching, he stepped up and hit the 138 checkout heard around the world. Treble 20, treble 18, double 12. The crowd exploded.
Deller not doing this, but the shot's on for the title. Double 12 for the title. I've seen nothing like it in my life.
Commentators could barely contain themselves. Deller raised his arms, not just in victory, but in disbelief. It was the first time a qualifier had ever won the world title, and it wasn't just an upset, it was a revolution. That one checkout changed perceptions. It reminded everyone that underdogs don't ask for permission, they just take their shot. Deller's win didn't just dethrone a champion, it redefined what was possible. He proved that in darts, fear, not form, often decides finals. Larry Butler, The American Dream, 1994. The 1994 World Match Play marked the birth of a new major in the PDC calendar. Hosted at the iconic Winter Gardens in Blackpool, it attracted the best of the best. British darts royalty all vying to make their mark on the new stage. No one expected an American to crash the party. Larry Butler, a quiet, unassuming player from Ohio, wasn't on anyone's radar. He wasn't a household name in the UK. In fact, most fans hadn't heard of him at all. But he had the steel in his throw and ice in his veins. And when the bracket dropped, Butler didn't just show up, he started knocking out giants. He took down Steve Raw and stunned Jockey Wilson in the quarterfinals. His performances were calm, clinical, and impossible to ignore. Before he knew it, the American outsider found himself in the final, facing the reigning WDC World Champion Dennis Priestley. History was on the line. The final wasn't flashy, it was a grind, but Butler's consistency told the story. Dart after dart, he wore down Priestley and closed out the match, becoming the first ever World Match Play champion.
And open bed and a bumper in, maybe. Yes! Larry Butler! Dennis got back into it, but the American has won the title 16-12.
The crowd may have entered unfamiliar with his name, but they left knowing they'd just witnessed something seismic. A North American had not only competed, he'd conquered. Butler's win wasn't just unexpected, it was transformative. It signalled that darts was no longer a closed circuit, that the game's future could come from anywhere. His victory cracked the door open for international players, and in doing so, Larry Butler didn't just win a trophy, he helped globalise the sport. John Part, the outsider who ended Taylor's reign, 2003. Phil Taylor seemed unstoppable. He'd won 8 PDC World Championship titles in a row, and the power hadn't just dominated, he defined the era. Every opponent who stepped up was outclassed, outthrown, and ultimately outmatched. By 2003, many believed Taylor was untouchable. Enter John Part, a Canadian, calm, unshaken and rarely flashy. He'd already felt Taylor's fury once, losing to him in the 2001 final, but this time he came back smarter, more composed, and armed with experience. From the first dart, it was clear. This wasn't going to be a coronation. It was going to be a battle. The match stretched deep, set after set, leg after leg. Part didn't overpower Taylor. He outlasted him. With patient scoring, cold-blooded checkouts, and unshakable focus, he stayed in the fight. The tensions peaked with the sets at 6-all. It was the final and deciding set. Winner takes all. Taylor, known for breaking players in these moments, found himself chasing while Part seemed to find another gear. When the final double landed, the arena erupted, not in shock, but in awe.
77, treble 19, double 10 to take the world title. 18 and tops. Greatest player ever. John Part once tops this thing. Taylor did it! John Part of Canada in the greatest game ever seen by Sky!
John Part had just done the unthinkable. He became the first player to ever beat Phil Taylor in a PDC World Championship final. But this wasn't just a changing of the guard, it was a shattering of the myth. Taylor's aura of invincibility cracked that night. Part's victory proved that even legends bleed, and for every player watching around the world, it sent a clear message. Perfection can be challenged, giants can be toppled, and belief, when backed by precision, is a weapon. Kirk Shepherd, the apprentice who nearly took it all, 2008. In 2008, no one was talking about Kirk Shepherd. At just 21 years old, he wasn't a seeded player, wasn't a rising star, and wasn't even supposed to make it past the first round. By trade, he was a sheet metal worker, a qualifier tossed into the biggest tournament in darts with the odds stacked against him at 1,000 to 1. Most expected him to be cannon fodder. Nothing more than a name on the bracket. But Shepherd had other ideas and came armed with something no one could measure: fearlessness. With smooth rhythm and icy finishes, he stunned seeded player after seeded player. He sent Peter Manley packing, closely followed by Wayne Mardle. The darting world started to take notice, but no one quite believed the run would last. Yet, it did. Round after round, Shepherd refused to blink and he played like a man with nothing to lose. When the dust settled, the apprentice from Ramsgate had made it to the PDC World Championship final. He faced John Part in the final, a seasoned champion who had already slain Phil Taylor once. Shepherd, despite the pressure, didn't collapse. He didn't freeze. He fought. He lost the final 7-2, but the score didn't tell the whole story.
Last chance here at the moment.
10 shots.
John Part secures the double that brings a smile to his face and a happy new year to him.
Shepherd's run remains one of the most improbable journeys in darts history. He became the youngest ever PDC finalist at the time, and more importantly, a living reminder that rankings, predictions, and pedigree mean nothing on the night. All it takes is one player with a steady hand and unshakable belief to flip the entire script. Rob Cross, from Wires to World Champion, 2018. In 2016, Rob Cross was wiring homes as an electrician in East Sussex. He played local league darts on the side. No sponsorships, no big walk-ons, no expectations. Just a guy with a steady hand and a quiet dream. By the end of 2017, everything changed. Cross entered the PDC circuit and made waves fast, winning Players' Championship events and quietly building momentum. But even then, few believed he'd do damage at his first World Championship. He was still just the electrician. Then came Ali Pali. Cross stormed through the tournament. He beat seasoned veterans and climbed through each round with a blend of power scoring and unshakable nerve. But it was the semi-final against Michael van Gerwen that made fans stop and stare. In one of the greatest matches ever played, Cross edged MVG in a sudden death leg, sending the world number 1 home in disbelief.
It's the world final, his first attempt. Rob Cross, in his debut year, is through to the World Championship final with one of the most incredible wins in one of the most incredible games of...
In the final, it felt like destiny was up for grabs. Facing him was none other than Phil Taylor, the greatest to ever throw, playing the final match of his legendary career. For many, it felt like a storybook ending was written, Taylor bowing out on top. But Rob Cross had his own script. He didn't just win, he dominated in a 7-2 demolition.
Another double 16 for the World Championship, the moment he's dreamt of. And Rob Cross, an unknown amateur, little more than a year ago, has beaten the legendary Phil Taylor to win the World Championship.
Every checkout was a statement, every leg a reminder that the new era had arrived. In just over a year, Rob Cross went from local leagues to lifting the world title. It wasn't a rise, it was a rocket launch. His story wasn't just about talent, it was about timing, belief, and the courage to perform on the biggest stage of them all. Cross proved that lightning can strike even when no one's watching, and when it does, it can burn down everything you thought was certain. Andrew Gilding, The Quiet Storm, 2023. For most of his career, Andrew Gilding was a background name. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud. At 52 years old, he'd spent decades quietly working the tour, showing up, throwing well, and going home. No major titles, no headlines, just a deep love for the game and an unwavering commitment to keep going. Then came the 2023 UK Open. Gilding wasn't anyone's favourite going into the tournament. He didn't light up pre-tournament predictions, but round by round he advanced, steady, measured, relentless. He didn't blast players off the board, he wore them down, and when the final arrived, he faced one of the sport's most dominant figures, Michael van Gerwen. Few gave him a chance. Van Gerwen had power, pace and pedigree, but Gilding had something more subtle. He was calm and threw without fear. He stuck to his rhythm, and as the match reached its climax, tied 10-all.
Yes, indeed, it goes to the deciding leg. 21st and final.
It came down to one leg, one moment. Gilding didn't flinch. With a clean checkout, Gilding secured an 11-10 victory and his first ever PDC major.
There it is! Andrew Gilding, at 52, has won a major.
The crowd, stunned, rose to their feet, not just for the win, but for the man who had earned it inch by inch. Gilding's triumph wasn't just a surprise, it was a statement. At 52, he became the oldest first-time major winner in PDC history. He reminded everyone watching that the game doesn't care about hype, it rewards perseverance. His victory was proof that greatness doesn't have a timeline, and that sometimes the quietest players bring down the loudest storms. Bradley Brooks, the breakout of 2025. Bradley Brooks had been around the fringes of darts for a while. Talented, yes. Ambitious, definitely. But in a field dominated by superstars and heavy hitters, Brooks wasn't yet a name that turned heads. Ranked 73rd in the world heading into the 2025 Players' Championship 21, he was seen as a solid pro, but nothing more. The bookmakers had him at 500 to 1. Most fans didn't even have him on their radar. But something clicked. From the first round, Brooks threw with swagger. He looked sharp, focused and confident, like a player finally stepping into his moment. Match after match, he toppled more experienced opponents. In the final, against former world champion Gervin Price, with his first ever title on the line, Brooks kept his cool. He didn't let the moment swallow him. Instead, he leaned into it, hitting big scores, cleaning up finishes, and silencing any lingering doubts. When the final dart landed, Brooks had a look of relief mixed with disbelief. He had done it. A 500 to 1 outsider had just claimed his first PDC title.
Wonderfully all day. And Bradley Brooks has come of age. The former World Youth Champion is a senior PDC title winner, fully deserved on the basis of play.
The win came with a £15,000 payday and a ticket to the World Championship, but more importantly, it redefined who Bradley Brooks was. Not just a player with potential, a player with presence, and a player who could win. His breakout wasn't just a flash in the pan, it was a story of grit, patience, and proof that sometimes all a player needs is one shot, and the nerve to take it. Luke Littler, the teenage prodigy, 2024. 16 years old. That's how young Luke Littler was when he walked into the Alexandra Palace for the 2024 PDC World Darts Championship. He wasn't just the youngest player in the tournament, he was the youngest player most fans had ever seen on that stage. A youth champion, sure, but this was a big leagues. Grown men, world champions, pressure and lights. And none of it seemed to bother him. From the moment he stepped up to the oche, Littler looked like he belonged. Not just because of his throw, which was smooth, confident and surgical, but because of the way he handled the spotlight, the interviews and the noise. The weight of expectation seemed to grow with every round. He wasn't just winning matches though, he was dismantling opponents. Christian Kist, Brendan Dolan, Rob Cross, players with years of experience and reputations built over hundreds of matches. Littler beat them all, calmly and coolly, as if he'd done it 100 times before. By the time he reached the final, the world had taken notice. A 16-year-old was one win away from becoming the youngest world champion in darts history. And in the final against Luke Humphries, he didn't fade. He fought, and he hit big finishes, traded sets, and made it a battle. He eventually lost, but not before turning the entire sport upside down. When the match ended, Littler walked off not as a runner-up, but as a superstar.
The ascension is complete. Luke Humphries is the greatest darting force on the planet right now. The world.
His run wasn't just historic, it was inspiring. He proved that darts isn't just about age, it's about presence, poise and fire. He turned casual fans into believers and became the face of a new generation before he was even old enough to buy a pint. And here's the wild part. It feels like he's only just getting started. Darts has always been a game of skill, but the greatest stories? They're stories of grit and determination. These underdogs didn't just win legs, they won hearts. They reminded us that belief beats reputation, that pressure reveals greatness, and that in darts, no one is ever truly out of the game. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more darts legends, drama, and unforgettable moments.